Black Conversations is brought to you by Castle Milk Stout. Savor your richness. The opinions expressed within the series are solely of the individuals and do not reflect the opinions and beliefs of the Castle Milk Stout brand.
In the westernized world that we live in, because we're living in the suburbs now, there is no place for certain Black cultures to exist. Like, for example, to have 5-day weddings because, you know, they're like 10 days.
We married way too long. I'm still going to a wedding that started last year.
No, we must influence, we must push the agenda of preserving our culture in those suburbs.
Yes.
Like religion was forced down to us.
And we must be fearless about it.
Yes. And then we have taken it and we are running with it as if nobody's business. I'm saying our culture cannot be left behind because now we're having a better life.
Yeah.
That better life should include our identity.
And the 2022 part of it should also include having conversations where we can say, how do we look at the old traditions and everything that we want to preserve and bring it into a modern day that serves everybody?
This is unfortunate that I'm saying this on TV.
Okay.
But in order for culture to evolve, certain people need to die off. No, it's true.
Well, I mean, I agree with you. I agree with you.
There are certain things that we are still doing today because this is how we did it in 1922. I'm like, because that's how we move things forward.
I disagree with you,
impart your knowledge. Then we choose, okay, suburbs, we want to carry on doing lezi, but there's certain things that we now can't do.
But for me, it's not even a suburban thing. It's just a we're being modern now.
Even
if you live
do we have to modernize culture?
No,
I'm interested in how do we modernize culture.
That is why we think things are not working our way.
Yeah.
It's because we are living half of it.
There are things, and I need to say this in Zulu, there are things that are isiko and there are things that are umkhuba. Umkhuba could be...
Umkhuba's habit, right?
Umkhuba is a habit that we saw them doing.
Yeah, bad habits.
And then isiko is something that we've all decided as society, this is part of who we are.
Okay.
And a lot of things weave themselves as umkhuba into our culture. That's why we find things in our own culture that we can't explain.
Yeah.
Nobody can explain to me why the coffin must arrive a day before the funeral. Why must the family sleep with a dead body in the house, traumatizing people who are already traumatized?
The conversation is so, look, there's no other way to put it, so yummy that I am so lost in it because I love listening to people and their opinions, you know.
Are we accommodated in terms of our spiritual practices as Black people in our workspaces?
We're not.
Are we accommodated in corporate spaces? If you go to your employees, any one of your employees, and you explain to them that there are certain things and practices that you do that you need to do at the doorstep of the actual facility that has employed you in order for you to step into it and be able to practice and deliver according to your highest standard of excellence.
Yeah.
Look, I know my question is a little bit dramatic, or my example is dramatic of maybe say you've come from a consultation and you know, in order for you to start working at this company on your first day, before like maybe and this and that and the other. Because I mean, the workspace is a communal space.
Yes.
It's not your personal space. But do you think companies accommodate, you know, namasiko wake?
But I want to give you an example.
Yeah.
You know, a practical example. I mean, I get invited by different companies, and they always say, with your partner, I reject that invitation because I'm known who I am. I cannot be limited to a particular setup. I'm a polygamist. You need to say, I invite you with your spouses, with your partners. Then I will attend, I will honor. Recently, we have just buried the Queen there.
Yeah.
They've carried everything to the T.
No,
To their culture.
They dropped
To
colonization.
to
They
their
did.
culture, to their culture.
No.
They did not say, because we are going to be inviting African presidents to come and be part of this burial ceremony, there are certain things that we are not
Okay,
going
but
to
for
do.
instance,
They
it
had
was
to-
streamed on YouTube. That's modern.
That's modern.
They've added modern
Yes,
things.
but the initial event was never reduced to any
wasn't
to
changed.
accommodate us. But streaming, we can also stream our
Baba
culture.
Msele,
For me, I don't think
Mabamsele.
it should be a change to accommodate white people or suburbs. That's what I'm saying.
I
But
wanna-
just to accommodate us. Ugh, I sound like I'm running for Miss SA.
As abantu abamnyama, ne, we have really made it complicated to just be human beings.
Yeah.
And there are certain things, and I like what you just said when I'm a guna masiko,
And in cool.
and then nemikuba. We've complicated very, very simple things. A burial, and I respect spirit a lot. I live on the basis of respecting spirit first, so that I can thrive as human.
Yes,
Yabo,
yes,
in
yes,
the flesh.
Yes.
But there are certain things when I think of them, like marriage, the process of getting married as a black person.
It's
The
taxing.
habit, the bad habit of tandimali in most families
Yebo.
has complicated the process of getting married for black people. Because if it is that we park the white wedding, really that thing is unnecessary. If you ask me, in my opinion, have a party, man. Just so you
Someone
want a
else's
party.
culture.
Let's not call that
And it is
our
someone else's
wedding.
culture.
Yeah, well,
Yes.
somebody
It
else's
absolutely
culture. You are having a party and you want it to be themed that we must come dressed like this.
Yeah.
It's a themed affair. Ha re bua ka go nyala gwa setso,
Yes.
sa rona ke go kreya se re se tlhabang,
Yeah.
ke go nyadisa badimo, akere, ke go tlhapa ka nyoko, go tshasiwa, go bigiwa, akere, le go laiwa, akere, and then go buisiwa ke batho ba bagolo ba re tsebisa gore mo lenyalong go so, go so, go so.
But we have made to hate that.
We've been made to hate that. I think marriage itself is flawed. It is something that I'm truly not interested in. So when we speak of marriage, I do have passionate points, but then I'm like, whatever, you know what, to each their own.
I would like to hear, Mina, your views on polyandry. Because ngiyibuke ishow yakho, I've never heard you actually speaking on polyandry. Do you? Yeah.
That's a very good question.
Yes,
Thank you.
yes.
Thank you, Buffett.
So,
I'm
do
listening.
you, because you like it when it's on your side.
Yeah.
Wena as ubaba Msele, would you have agreed kuqhamuka umuntu wesifazane athi ngicela ukuthi nginishade nibe babili kumina?
It's not like I would agree as Ubabu Mselek. No, I will ask the reason why you want to be in the polyandry setup. Why am I in a polygamous setup? And if we can answer the basis of that question, then we can move forward.
Only time I'd ever consider polygamy is if the polyandry conversation can come into place. Then let's all bring ours and, do you understand?
Here I am building a family coming from one stem, from one seed, not from different people. And at the same time, I am not competing by having one or more wives. If it was easy for me to achieve this kind of a family, not easy to achieve this kind of a family with one wife, I would have, because it's not about that. But there is no way that you will achieve this family with one wife. Therefore, you need to have wives so that you can have this family.
Why can't you achieve it with just one wife?
Because I have a certain number of children that I aspire to have.
How many is that?
20.
Black Conversations is brought to you by Castle Milk Stout. Savor your richness. Black Conversations is brought to you by Castle Milk Stout. Savor your richness.
I want to touch on two things, on what you mentioned about your culture and blackness in the workplace. The first thing is we shouldn't now, because we're working in a certain environment, change who we are. So it should be allowed that, that's what I need in order to be great. That's what I need in order for me to do my job. And obviously it requires a conversation with the company that you work for.
That's
because
true.
some of these things, they're not privy to them, you know, but they're important to us.
Tembisa, I was at the airport, ne? For the first time in my life, I made this observation, and I actually cried. I cried tears. I stopped and I cried. I was in Cape Town. We just landed from Joburg. And it even makes me want to cry now thinking about it. We are a predominantly black country. Ne? At the airport, I see prayer room.
Yeah.
And I know it's not a prayer room for me. It's not a prayer room for myself as a black person, as an African black person.
Yeah.
It's not my prayer room.
It's not.
Why don't I have a room
Luphahla.
at the airport?
I feel like we have to
That
constantly ask
room,
for permission.
that room we are talking about.
Because in a predominantly black African part of the world,
You know, that
Right?
actually just gave me goosebumps.
can I tell you, I cried, Tembisa, because there's nothing wrong with Muslim. There's absolutely nothing wrong with anyone else's culture. But are we that weak as a black nation that we cannot even negotiate at the highest executive level that our black people deserve ukungena
100%.
erumini baguqe ngedolo,
as soon as we realize
bashise,
how
bashise,
anti-black our
Wait,
government
hold on.
is.
safekeeping.
Hayi mna iyandiga le nto, iyandiga, because we have to be constantly be fighting for things that should be standard, that should be the norm.
This is the problem, Dineo. The problem is that we are so segmented. I will
Yeah,
tell you
it's
about
true.
myself. It probably not more than 10 years since I embraced my blackness completely, because I was raised in a church and we were taught certain things. That's how our culture got demonized.
Yeah.
That's where we were
Yeah.
told ukuthi if kuthiwa ukhuluma nomuntu ongasekho
Yeah.
ukhuluma
Yeah.
nedemon.
Yeah.
And that was ingrained in us from childhood. So if you're telling me about a prayer room, yomuntu omnyama ezoba se-airport where you can burn impepho yakho, trust me, we will be the first ones fighting amongst each other.
You're 100%.
It won't be other cultures.
We will be the first people who will be criticizing
Yes.
that.
I'll be like,
instead
ngifuna
of
ukunikela
pushing.
impepho e-airport, mina ngigqoke kahle. You know
It's
what
the
I'm
same thing as when you go out, even. The fact that black people are gatekeepers, like internalized racism is a real thing.
Yeah.
Our leaders are inherently anti-black. And even the spaces you go to, like people will be like, oh, that place is so many black people. It's like ghetto, it's like this. Or
Yep.
something.
You know what it is? I can tell you this. Falling in line as a black person with this westernized culture is seen as the norm. And it shouldn't be like that. And I think now personally, I just at work, they know. And I'm lucky enough to work in an environment that is artistic, you know, it's creative in a creative environment.
Imagine the ones
And
that
my
work in
producers
corporate
know.
institutes that are predominantly white.
Yes,
Mama,
yes.
I
I
tell
tell
your
my
bosses,
producers,
I need
I
to
tell
know.
them,
Guys, we have so
I
much
need-
influence
I need that space.
to change
and we
this
need to
narrative.
be able to have those conversations.
Yes,
I tell
because
they know. They know.
have you seen how easy for people to practice and embrace ubungoma now? Now that they see people like yourselves
Yeah.
doing it openly on TV. So it's no longer a shame or something that I cannot do, I need to do somewhere hidden. But because they've seen you doing it, now people are saying, hey, nam ngiyezwa ukuthi
And
ngiyisakho."
that's the word, shame.
Thank you.
They shame you into believing that your
Just to-
culture and your blackness is wrong.
We just need to start existing, honestly, and literally start occupying a space without defending our blackness all the time.
When we speak about tradition and culture, it's very important for me to understand, I think, why. And sometimes, like, if there is criticism from somebody who hasn't grown up in that situation, like myself, it's more because just because it's been that way is not good enough. And also just because we don't interrogate that some of the traditions that we want to hold on to so badly do have patriarchal, foundations, even if it comes from mothers, because mothers are usually, and grandmothers, the enforcers of patriarchy and misogyny, honestly. So it is like, I've never really sat with somebody who is in this lifestyle, if you will, as to like more than just having lots of kids, because it is possible, where that comes from exactly, and why it's important to preserve these specific cultures, which to me seem to really favor men way more than they do women.
I think the system, any system, has loopholes, and it can be criticized and be molded. But the difference that I will raise with you is that there is not everything that is wrong about this kind of a setup. Because now that it favors men, as if it's wrong, it's not wrong.
No, I don't have the issue that it's wrong, but I do think we do need to interrogate sometimes that they are patriarchal. It's fine if we want to continue them, but I think we have to say, okay, sometimes these things do favor.
What is patriarchal? Marriage?
yes.
Well,
Yeah.
actually,
polygamy?
in its essence, marriage, yes, because even the things of the man, the father gives you away to the groom, and there's
But I mean,
a lot
should be.
about it.
If you ask me, from a person who's been married, if you read from a biblical perspective, man leaves his home, his mother's home, to start his own family. you marry into his family. He doesn't marry into yours.
That in itself is patriarchal.
Yes.
But
The Bible
I'm
itself.
all for diminishing patriarchy, but I also think we have to have common sense.
No, but I
where
also
certain
don't
structures
have
are
a
concerned.
sense of
Yeah.
we can't do things even when they are patriarchal in
Because I
essence.
can't
but
imagine.
it is.
But I'm
I
happy
can't
that we're
imagine-
agreeing on something.
I can't imagine remarrying and my next husband becomes a Ranaka.
How to know what to common sense? That is, in better sideways, because you have to have common sense. It means about she's questioning illogic yako.
It's not everything that is, a walk in the park about patriarchy or our culture. Let me give you an example. If you cheat on me and you are my wife,
Are you proposing?
it's not going to be...
This is happening.
Are you accepting?
Is this a proposal live on air?
Oh, yes, I am. I
accept.
Oh, wow, wonderful.
Sifike sabona. Sashatisa.
I'm ready, KZN. Your girl is coming through.
So I'm saying to you, don't look at things and think it favors us.
But this is why, for me, it's important that we have the conversations. Because
Yeah.
all I was saying is sometimes you ask questions of why, and it's just rejected as that's the way it is. You can't talk about it, you're young, or you're a woman, or you're... So I'm glad to have this conversation with you because it has changed certain perspectives. It's not going to happen for me, but it's at least allowed me to understand where you're coming from or where some people
Yeah.
are coming from. I do still think people... excuse my French, but bastardize tradition in their favor in order to get away with nonsense. But I do think this is what I meant by, having
then I'm happy.
conversations with different generations.
Yeah. Also, you guys are getting married, so congratulations.
Married, wife number 5.
Babumseleko's charm. Dangerous lo tata. That is why unabafaza by kubona. Dangerous. That charm.
Black Conversations is brought to you by Castle Milk Stout. Savor your richness. Black Conversations is brought to you by Castle Milk Stout. Savor your richness.
There are certain within the black community that say a child who is homosexual, utakatiwe, it must be removed. And I know it doesn't only happen in the black community, but I've seen it happen so many times where they take away the very soul that is their child because they don't want them to be that way.
You can't
Can
also
I-
ask
can I
for...
hold on?
Wait,
Wait.
you can't also
So
ask
instead
for...
of them
Tembisa,
accepting,
No, wait.
Yes.
then they look to
Do
a
you see what I'm
different...
trying to
Mina,
say?
I will bring it to what's happening right now.
Okay.
I would like, if there's any person watching this, you can tweet me, you can do whatever. Explain to me why are there so many gay and lesbian people ePhehlweni if our ancestors are against this? Because trust me, go to any umgidi, the rainbow flag is flying very high.
Ewe.
So explain to me, ukuthi, if you're saying ukuthi this is not part of who we are, then amadlozi ethu afunani kulabantu.
But you also can't say, as black people, we want to be, ourselves fully, but not you guys. Or Black Lives Matter, but not your lives. Like, for me, if Black Lives Matter, that's
Yeah.
every single
But
Black life.
there is-
And
Yes.
if people must be accepted for who they are,
Yes.
that's every
Such
single kind of
an
lifestyle,
important
every
thing
single
for me.
orientation.
Can I ask you, this is based on my belief, and you have already
Yeah.
seen that. As a gay person, if ever you are or you represent them, how do you then see yourself making children? Because that is important for me. And I have reasons because...
Artificial insemination.
Firstly, as a straight
adoption.
person, I don't want to have kids. So,
But Mselegu, it
not
goes
the
back
be-all
to
and
this.
end-all.
Yeah.
Not everybody wants to have kids.
Okay.
Right?
Yes.
Not everybody enters into a relationship.
Mselegu rata bale bana,
Yes,
Yeah, yeah.
No, I just wanted...
Not everybody enters into a relationship, and this is
Okay.
not just an LGBTQIA plus thing.
It's
It's
a-
a human thing. There are people who just don't want to have children, that want companionship, which is what being together was about. It was about ukuthi nginomuntu who is my right hand, that I'm going to walk through life with. The children part is an extension of that.
of that.
And everything else is an extension of that. So I find ukuthi, a lot of people look at people's relationships and then they impose what they feel culturally and what their goals and desires are. And they ask myself, my thing is, Uguti, at the end of the day, whatever you believe in, whatever your religion is, the jurisdiction is you.
So, ndiyayiva yonke le nto, but how does then your blackness specifically exist in the Western world in the
just
21st
does.
century?
My blackness, it just does. Really, and there's no more answer, simpler, more complicated than that.
We are so segregated and we are all doing our own thing. Wonke umuntu ufuna ukushayina as a black person ukuthi ngibukeni somponeng sonke. Look at how rich I am. Look at what I'm achieving. And I'm just like, what are we doing right now to start threading and creating that system that we are not going to benefit from? We're going to die. We are going to die and we won't see that much of a change in the way that the system is. Our kids will probably die, but our grandkids will go, you know what? Kunabantu that were there in 2020, they made this move. And this move, look at where it got us 200 years from now. So that's what I need from us. I know I'm kumbayaring, I'm sounding like a politician right now, but that is the only way that we can solve the current crisis.
One thing about me is that, especially with my life and everything that's gone through, and my life has played out in front of so many people, is that I don't succumb to shame being used as a weapon. No. And the one thing I implore every single black person, do not be ashamed of your blackness.
Where I come from and the way I live, I always tell my children that we were created by the same creator, and there was a reason why we are different. And being different does not make you less of a person, of a human being. Yes. Because sometimes the reason why we are not bold enough to come out there and display who we are is because we think so-and-so is better than yourself. Then that belittles you. That is the first part. But the other thing that I carry from generation to generation is the respect and the way we carry ourselves as the Mselegus, because I think that is the value that I can share, because out of that value, there's so much that they can learn to live with each and every person.
Being black in a modern world, in a Western world, means being black how you want to be black, how you're going to be black, and not being ashamed that it doesn't look a certain way or sound a certain way.
Hear, hear. Yeah. And being pro-black doesn't mean anti-something else.
Exactly.
Oh.
Yes.
The pro-black is not anti-white.
Yes.
What role does money play?
Something that is prevalent, we worship money.
That breeds contempt. Then you'll find that there are labels called I'm a slave queen because balanda limali.
Rode, you self-identify as black. Maybe just unpack that for us.
Because I don't see colored as a race.
With a female like myself, right? I'm not necessarily a chakrahan at first. There's this idea.
Chakra lakara. There are so many slave queens that I know out there that hygiene is horrible. Because they do not understand.
Oh my gosh, can we actually do a series where Coconut Kells goes, is it Kwanongoma? Where does he live? I don't know. But that would be call me. Ooh, let's make it happen. Oh my God, can you imagine that, guys?
We have so much power. So if we can do that, so that we must coexist. We are not saying, no, this is not right, but we are saying we have learned something. But out of learning that, our eyes are open now that not everything was designed for us. In fact, most of it was made to oppress us so that we even lose ourselves.
Black Conversations was brought to you by Castle Milk Stout. Savor your richness.